Yeah, I understand. So that's what you want. Yeah, I got it. Outpatient today. 27. If it's not going to be Tuesday, you'll be this coming Tuesday, or the following Tuesday, definitely.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نحمده ونصلي على رسول النبي الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قال الله تعالى في شان حبيبه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا مولانا محمد طب القلوب ودوائها وعافية الأبدان وشفائها ونور الأبصار وضيائها وعلى آله وصحبه دائما أبدا. صلاة وسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. Today is the 29th of Jamad al-Akhir, so maybe the last day of this month, which if it is, that means of course Rajab starts tomorrow. If not, then Rajab will start Sunday. Rajab, of course, is significant on multiple levels. It also signifies the coming of Ramadan. And it's also one of the 4 sacred months, which were considered sacred even by the Arabs before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala affirmed this in the Quran. Last week, as we mentioned, this month, Jamad al-Akhir, we mentioned 2 significant things, which is the birth of Sayyida Bi Fatima salamullah alayha, and the passing of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Rajab, if you look at the list of Rajab, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decorated Rajab with many comings and goings of the ones that He loves. And one of the comings in Rajab is the birth of Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh. When we look at the relationship between Abu Bakr and Ali radiallahu anhuma, it's very interesting. One time Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting in a gathering, and in that gathering Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was sitting beside him, and Ali radiallahu anhu entered, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he sees Ali radiallahu anhu enter, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, looking at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, immediately understands, just looking at his blessed, beautiful face, what he wanted. And so Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu immediately gets up and calls Ali radiallahu anhu to him, and has Ali radiallahu anhu sit in his place, and then he scoots over so that Ali radiallahu anhu is sitting between Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu that people of virtue recognize people of virtue. We've talked about this subject many times, about their relationship between the two of them. But, and there's so many perspectives and aspects to look at this. But when we look at their closeness to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the household, of course, Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh, and from the Ummah, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. And in their specific categories, there are no equals. We look at, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, He says, Sibghatullah wa ahsanu min Allahi sibghan. That take on the color of Allah, and what better color is there than that of Allah. And here color, as we know, doesn't mean black or white or blue or green or color like this. It's talking about characteristics. We know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His characteristics, the limited knowledge that we have of Allah. We do not know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His Zat, through His being. The 99 names of Allah, these all deal with His characteristics. And so this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding when He says Sibghatullah, to take on His color, is to adopt these characteristics. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ar-Rahim. So we too should be Rahim. And He sent Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a perfect example of all of these things, and especially Rahmatul lil Alameen, mercy to all of creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just, so we also are commanded to be just. He is loving, so we are commanded to be loving. So if you go through that list, there are aspects of that list that we are commanded to adopt. So when we look at Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq, radiallahu anhu, or when we see Sayyidina Ali, karamallahu wajh, we see those who, because of their closeness to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he is our wasila, through that closeness to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you see this perfection in adoption of these characteristics. And we see this also, or rather this exemplifies itself more during the time of the Khilafah. When the sun is out, you don't see the stars. When the sun goes down, then you see the stars. So, in the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of his companions had their status, but it is overshadowed by the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam leaves, now these stars have that opportunity to shine. Not that they weren't shining before, they were shining, it's just that we couldn't see them the way we see them later. In Hajjatul Wada, in the farewell Hajj of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you have 124,000 companions who were there at that Hajj. And the numbers are very interesting. It's interesting if you look at the Quran, you read the story of Talut alayhi salam. If Surah Bakr, towards the end, if you look at the story, the Bani Israel, they wanted a leader to lead them into battle. And during that, and for most of Bani Israel, they would have the prophet who would lead them spiritually, and then they would be assigned a king or a leader who would take them into battle. You had occasions when it was the same person, such as Musa al-Islam, such as Dawood al-Islam and Sulaiman al-Islam, but you have other occasions when you have demarcation as to this is the prophet and this is the king or the leader. So they asked the prophet that asked Allah to assign for us a leader to take us into battle. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assigns for them Talut alayhi salam. And of course when he assigns Talut, they say, like they did with everything. And they continue to do with everything. They say, how can he be our leader? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assigned him, and they said, we don't want him as our leader. He's not from amongst the big, rich tribes. He's a poor man. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent back Tabut al-Sakina, the Ark of the Covenant. He sent that as a sign that this is the sign that he is your leader, because it came to his door. When he takes them into battle, and he, long story short, he told them don't drink from the water. And if you drink from the water, then you can't continue with my army. What happens? They all drank from the water, other than 313 of them. And of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala eventually gives them victory, and Dawud al-Islam is amongst this army, which is how they attain victory. Badr, how many companions? 313. So the numbers are also significant. So you have 124,000 companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Hujjatul Wida. How many prophets? 124,000. Right? Each companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is representing a prophet. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said this in various ways. He talked about Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, his personality and his character being like that of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He talked about Umar radiallahu anhu, his personality and character being like Musa alayhi salam, and various others. So again, each one is representing someone. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, his personality and his normal character is very soft. If you read again in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the angels to destroy the people of Lut alayhi salam, he ordered them to stop by Ibrahim alayhi salam because he hadn't eaten in 7 days. Ibrahim alayhi salam did not eat unless he had guests, because the food that is eaten with the guest will not be taken account of. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders the angels go to him first, and also give him the glad tidings of Ishaq alayhi salam. And we know the story, they come, they won't eat, and then he says, why won't you eat? And then because he had slaughtered this calf for them. But then when they tell them why they have come, that they've been being sent to destroy the people of Lut, Ibrahim alayhi salam tries to delay them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this in the Quran, that this is out of his mercy, his softness. So again, this is the character of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Yet when he takes the Khilafah, when he is handed, and again, as we said before, Khilafah is not something that you take. So even me saying that when he takes the Khilafah, it's not something you take, it's something that is given. When he accepts the Khilafah, which is not what he wanted to do, but under the circumstances, there was no other choice. So he accepts the Khilafah. And all of Arabia apostates, other than Hijaz. And you have people coming, with intentions of war against Medina Munawwar. And you have groups coming and saying, look, our agreement was with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and now that he is dead and gone, our agreement also is dead and gone with him. So we want a new agreement, meaning we don't want to pay zakat. You have companions telling Abu Bakr, because there are no men fighting. The army has just been sent out to go deal with the Byzantians. So you have people telling Abu Bakr, including Umar, that agree with them for the moment, and then we'll deal with them later. A complete man, he knows when to be soft and also when to be firm. And the presence of Rasulullah ﷺ made Abu Bakr a complete man. And man here meaning not male and female, but man in the sense of someone with character. Someone who stands up for what is right at any cost. And they're all, telling him don't fight. But again, if he simply was his own, if we simply say, oh, he's very soft, then he should have said, okay, we'll make some agreement. We'll negotiate this. But that's not what he did. He stood up and he said, even if I have to fight them alone, I will fight them alone. And as we know, and we've talked about before, eventually Ali radiallahu anhu comes and recites certain verses of the Quran, swaying the decision of the companions toward the decision of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And then, of course, after the Rida Wars, then things settled down for somewhat. Then he had to deal with the Persians and the Romans and all the other things. But again, there were opportunities to show that softness as well. There was an old woman who lived on the outskirts of Medina Munawwara, who was blind and deaf and had no one to look after her. So every day Abu Bakr would take some food from Bayt al-Mal and go and cook it and feed her. And Umar would be after him, allow me to do this. I mean, you're the Khalifa, you're the Khalifa of the Muslims. How can you have other responsibilities, so allow me to do this. He says, no, she is my responsibility. Because he understood, as the Khalifa, everyone under his charge he will be questioned about. In comparison to the leaders today. And he would go and cook the food and feed her. And so when he passes, Umar he said, oh, this is my opportunity. So he goes and he, gets there and he cooks the food, for this blind, deaf woman. And he starts to feed her. And as he's feeding her, she says to him, he says, what happened to the other man? You're not the same man. He says, how do you know? He's trying to figure out how she knows. Of course, she can't hear. She can't see. He says, you're not the same man because that man used to chew the food before he would put it in my mouth because I have no teeth. Again, the softness of Abu Bakr. When we see Ali karamallahu wajh, he is Asadullah. There is no one who came in front of him and was able to withstand his blow. There was no one who even came close to defeating him. The only person who survived his blow was the one who spat or survived being taken down by him was the one who spat in his face. And he backed off. But he still won the person because the person accepts Islam when he understands why Ali now backs off. He says, if I kill you, because if I kill you now, then there's that aspect of my anger. We see how he dealt with the people of Nahran, the Khawarij. He goes into battle, 5,000 on the opposing side, all of whom are Hafiz of Quran and scholars of the time. If you read their description, they are Qura. At that time, Qura, the conditions of Qura, if you were considered a Qari, means you're Hafiz of Quran, not simply that you know how to recite, but you are Hafiz of Quran, and you're a scholar. They were linguistically scholars as well as scholars. But they have sided with the one who has been disrespectful to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They are doing takfir of the Muslims, killing the Muslims, telling Ali that he's kafir, and all of these things. And these people aren't just then, they are today as well. The names change, the faces change, the ideologies and the actions stay the same. He takes them all out. Because if you read the hadith, Rasulullah had already told Ali, the hadiths are in Muslim and Bukhari and various other books, where he said that in this battle not even 10 of your men will be martyred and not even 10 of their men will survive. He takes them all out, and exactly as the Rasulullah had described. And the people later, they come to him, they say, you've destroyed or killed all of the Khawarij. He says, no. He says, they are in the loins of men and in the wombs of women, and they will be here until the end. But we see Ali, and Ali, Rasulullah connected him with himself, and he was connected to Rasulullah. Lahmaka lahmi, damaka dami, jismaka jismi. Your flesh is my flesh, your blood is my blood, your body is my body. This again. And the hadith which Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullahi mentions in two places, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that my nur and the nur of Ali are one until 14,000 years before the creation of Adam alayhi salam. So we see again this person who by his nature is very firm. But then when we see his dealings with the people, I'm not talking about those who deviated and came and fought against him, or those who were still rightly guided but still fought against him because of all the propaganda. I'm talking about the general people, when he would deal with people and how he would deal with people. And everybody, no one feared asking him a question. And they didn't fear for two reasons. One is, sometimes you're afraid to ask somebody a question because of the way they respond. They weren't worried about how he would respond. And plus, there was no worry that he wouldn't be able to respond. You go to people and, a simple thing. I don't go and ask, someone in kindergarten calculus problems, because I know they can't answer the question. I go to somebody who I think knows, or rather who I know knows the subject. Just like when the companions would come and ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when is the hour? Multiple occasions we see various ahadith where they would come and ask, when is the hour? Which tells us that the aqidah or the belief of the companions is that he knows when the hour is. Otherwise they wouldn't be asking him. when we look at again Abu Bakr and Ali radiallahu anhuma, and we look at their closeness to each other, which is only because of their closeness to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, we see whenever Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu is in any difficulty, who comes to his aid? Ali karamallahu wajh. And this was throughout, you know, whenever anyone was in any difficulty, who would they turn to and who would come to their aid would be Ali karamallahu wajh. This is why, you know, during the Khilafah of Umar, during the Khilafah of Abu Bakr, then you don't have a official position of Chief Justice. But the person acting in that position was Ali radiallahu anhu. Whenever an issue came up, who would they go to? To Ali. During the Khilafah of Umar, you now have the official position. Who is placed in that position? Ali karamallahu wajh. You have a trial of a woman who has committed zina, and she is found guilty. I mean, it's not circumstantial. And in cases where there is had, you know, where the punishment is severe, you know, in Islam, circumstantial evidence doesn't work. It has to be clear-cut because the punishment is so severe. And if it's not clear-cut, those who accuse them are then punished. I mean, it's, you know, if you look at the justice of Islam, there is no parallel to this. You know, people talk about the justice system here. There's no justice system here. It's all a racket. You know, the whole country is a racket. Every aspect of the country is a racket. Healthcare is a racket. The place you would expect, the last place you would think that it would be, you know, like this. It's a whole racket. The whole insurance industry, every aspect of it. The educational system is a racket. You know, when they designed the educational system here, the people that designed it, public education, the Rockefellers and all these guys, they didn't want people who could think independently. Because they didn't want competition. They wanted workers. So they dumb you up, so you can't think, you know, you can't think outside the box, the problem, because you don't even know where the box is. If you look at the institutional entities that were created during the Khilafah, all of which are based on the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whether it is the justice system or the educational system or, you know, the inheritance laws and all of these things. All of them are designed to make better people, to make men men. And again, men here not male or female, but people with character, who can stand up for what is right and defend the rights of others. You know, again, this whole system that's, you know, which is a racket. They talk about this justice. And we see, I mean, anyone who can't see is truly blind. I mean, you know, before they at least tried to hide it, they don't even hide it anymore. And if anything is said against them, then they cut you off. All this freedom of speech. It's only free as long as you agree with them. So when we look at these institutional systems that were created, and even, you know, I could go into like all of these sciences as well. Modern day chemistry, Who is the father of modern day chemistry? Jabir ibn Hayyan. Who is his teacher? Imam Jafar Sadiq. Alayhi salam. Algebra. Al-Jabr. Why did they even come up with algebra? Who came up with it? It wasn't, mathematicians. Well, the mathematicians were Islamic scholars. Why did they come up with it? To be able to simplify the inheritance codes. Because if you look at, depending on the way the family tree branches, it can get very complicated. Figure out what X is. Ali radiallahu is the master of math. Even the Orientalists had to acknowledge this. If you look at all of these sciences, which really came through his lineage, which is the lineage of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, all of the sciences. And time's up, so I don't have time to go into that. Maybe I'll talk about that later, inshallah. But again, when we look at these people, their completeness is because of their connection to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's it, period. Our problems are because our distance from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, period. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that closeness and that connection. May He fill our hearts with His true love and the true love of His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all of those whom they love. And may He give victory to our brothers and sisters in Gaza and throughout the world, those who are being oppressed. And may He give guidance to the oppressors, and if guidance is not for them, then may He destroy them. Those who have not made sunnah, go ahead and make sunnah, inshallah.